Gobble gobble! Happy Thanksgiving! Troll Buddy Zoo here, and today we're talking about the Anbernic RG DS. And I'm kind of torn on this one because on one hand, you have a really, really nice, a really good looking, a really sturdy, almost one-to-one modern version of a Nintendo DS. But on the other hand, the price to performance ratio on this, just a hair off. Now it doesn't struggle with DS right out of the box, and with a little bit of tweaking, you can play pretty much every game at 2x upscaling. But it's also sub $100 in name only. It's just kind of a little bit disappointing because I'd really gotten used to Anbernic knocking it out of the park with these budget duplicate devices. Look at the 35XX SP, or the 34XX, which is a one-to-one copy of the original Game Boy Advance. These both had some slight issues, but all in all, they were amazing replicas of actual Nintendo hardware. They had no trouble playing the devices they were based on, and they were cheap. Now the RG DS kind of hits all those metrics, but it's not a must-buy kind of device like I thought most of the XX devices were. At least not right now, at least not at $99.99. Now we're going to break this down a lot further and also play a ton of DS games, so get yourself situated and tuck in for my review of the Anbernic RG DS. Now the RG DS here has two 4-inch IPS 640 by 480 screens. They're touch capacitive, so you can use your finger or the intended stylus for DS stuff. There's the ability to do a quick switch of focus between upper and lower screen. See that thing changing? And all in all, it's really a decent implementation of a budget dual screen device. But things quickly start to get kind of hinky, starting with the chip. Now the chip on here is an RK3568, which is just a slightly overclocked version of the chip on the 353 line from a few years back. On paper, it's okay for DS, but in implementation, it could be kind of finicky. Now in the first look video on the live stream, we were not impressed. We were not impressed at all. We were struggling to play some of these games at just regular 1x resolution. But after some weekend testing on our internal team, we've discovered a lot more power than we saw in that first look or the live stream. Here's how you do it. You go to Settings, Options, Video. You're going to want to turn on Multi-Threaded 3D Rendering. Now once you have this multi-threaded 3D rendering turned on, you can go up here and turn on your high resolution 3D rendering, which basically gives you the equivalent of 2x resolution. Now this is running a weird build of Drastic though, and anytime you change the settings, you're usually going to want to restart the app, because if you don't restart the app, it gets very laggy. It's very weird, and it kind of speaks to a poorly optimized Android build, to the point where I wonder if something like Gamma OS on here will unlock even more power. And speaking of power, 3DS on here is a pipe dream outside of some really, really low overhead games. It's kind of to be expected on this chip, and honestly, I just wish they didn't market it being able to play 3DS at all, because it's really a bait and switch. Now physically, this device is very DS-esque, which is difficult to say, but I would honestly buy this if I was looking for a DS exclusive emulator. Like, I have an old DS Fat here, but the screens are scratched to hell, and I don't know. DS is one of those systems that really, really needs a dedicated device. So let's go ahead and do a device tour, and then we'll compare it to my busted old DS Fat, 3DS XL, and just for fun, the Thor. I have the turquoise model here. It's very shiny, and you can see it's very fingerprint magnety on top. I really don't like that. I do like the gloss, but I don't like that I'm gonna have to carry around a washcloth and clean this off routinely. If you look at it, it is a very, very sturdy rectangle. You don't really have anything on the outside except for your shoulder buttons, your SD card, and your two USB ports. You have a headphone jack on the bottom, which I like. You have a power and a volume on the side, and then pretty much everything else is on the inside. Ugh. That hinge is, it is a bear to open. It's very tight. It's very sturdy, however. And if you really look, there's no gaps. This thing is very, very sturdy. It's very well made, at least as far as like, there's no gaps. Nothing's getting in there when you put it in your pocket, you put it in your bag. But that hinge, it's very tight. Since it is tight, there's no set viewing angles. You can kind of set it to full 180, 90, 45, 30. I think you can probably get to, what's that, 15 before the magnet realizes you're trying to close it. We're gonna have to see about long-term reliability on this hinge, but it honestly, it feels solid as hell. I'm gonna toss this in my bag for a while without a case, and we will see how it holds up. And again, because of that tight fit around the edges, I'm not super worried about the screen flexing at all. You have points of contacts around the entire perimeter, and it's not like the screen is flexing. It's not like the Thor where if you press down, you kind of feel it bow. It's pretty solid. The controls on here are actually really nice. This is a nice solid D-pad. Honestly, the only thing I really would have changed is maybe have these white, something to offset the all turquoise. But on the other hand, it is kind of cool in that all turquoise look. These sticks are very, very small. I'm pretty sure they're the same exact sticks that they had on the 34XXSP, which makes sense because these are in a clamshell. Now the sticks are snappy, but they're not cardinal snappy. They're not like the old sticks you used to get on like the 505 that were just up, down, left, right, and that was it. All your face buttons, all your D-pad, everything's good on the front. The only issue, these shoulder buttons are very, very loud, very clacky. I think maybe this area where they're seated here might be hollow, but they're very clacky. They sound like an old Windows mouse. Now this came with a stylus, it's actually a really sharp looking stylus. It works on my phone. It's touch capacitive. It'll work pretty much on anything. And these screens are touch capacitive, so you can use your finger if you want. Let's tackle that Lillipup. And I probably will end up using my finger if I have to control the touch screen, just because there's no slot for the stylus. There's nothing to slide it into. I think best case, I'm probably going to forget to bring this. The more probable case is I'm going to lose this. Now this thing came with a pretty chintzy case. It's not one of their best. I guess if you're going to use the case, you can tuck that in there. But honestly, it's a clamshell. I want to be able to close it and throw it in my pocket. Let's compare this son of a gun. So here we will show this against my old, just beat to crap DS, the fat DS. You can see here, there are some similarities. Mainly, there's a microphone slot, and the microphone slot does work. I was screaming at Nintendogs earlier. I named my dog Gary, and so I can say, Gary, get over here. And the dog comes over, and we have a lot of fun. But physically, you can see the similarities. You can see this is really just an upscaled version of the original line of DS handhelds, even down to these front firing speakers. They're not the best front firing speakers, but I think Anbernic, they've been leaning more towards replicating the original design, especially like with the 34XX here, where this D-pad was small and almost uncomfortable because the original Game Boy Advance had a small and uncomfortable D-pad. It's hard to shut. This guy, relatively easy to shut. You can see the drastic size difference on the side here, but they're pretty much the same thickness, and it's not that much taller. If we bring in the 3DS XL, you can see it is damn near the same size. It also has a very similar shoulder trigger kind of setup, and you can see where they took an homage, if not outright copying. Even down to the fact that you have your power USB-C kind of in the middle here. Everything's kind of lined up a little bit. You can also see, again, these are both fingerprint magnets, but it comes by it honestly because the 3DS XL here was a fingerprint magnet, and I still loved it. You're just going to have to wipe it down a lot. One thing you can tell right off the bat is that the RG DS here, both screens are the same size, which is not the same as the 3DS, and this is more of a callback to the original DS. Comparing the RG DS to the Thor here, and it's really no contest, but it shouldn't be a contest because this cost about $200 more than this. It has two beautiful OLED panels, much bigger screen on top, way, way, way more power, all around a much better device, but also all around much more expensive. Physically, again, that hinge is real hard to close. Now physically, the RGDS is a little bit wider than the Thor, but it's also a little bit skinnier, and it doesn't have these big honking triggers on it, so this is much more pocketable. Otherwise though, they are roughly the same height, and you can see here, the Thor is just a little bit less wide. Now let's talk about price on here, because one of the main marketing statements about this device was that it was going to be under $100. And it is, but only by a penny, because MSRP is $99.99. It's on pre-sale right now for $93.99. So yeah, it is under $100, but not by much. And when they first came out with the pitch for this, I was thinking, oh, maybe $75. $75 would be an amazing price for this. But honestly, $99.99, $100 plus what, $10, $15 shipping? It's honestly a little bit too much, at least for me. It's past the impulse range that the XX line sat in. Another issue I have on here is the 4,000 milliamp hour battery. Now they say you'll get 6 hours, but not playing DS. I feel like turning on multi-threading, it might help a little bit. Maybe it's my imagination. Maybe it's actually hurting it in reality. But this thing definitely gets warm to the touch and the battery drains really fast when you're playing DS, which is a shame. I would expect maybe 3 hours of DS on here before you need to grab a USB cord. And that's kind of a bummer. But when you are playing DS and you have that multi-threading enabled, the DS experience on here is really good. I missed out on a lot of the DS era, and I never really had a ton of interest in all the touch-based mechanics because I may or may not have emulated a great deal of the DS games that I did play. But I have been rediscovering a lot of these games through the Thor and now through the RG DS, and I really enjoy them. So let's have a little bit of a dedicated DS showcase because I think this really does excel as a dedicated DS machine. Now, one thing I'm going to point out with Sonic here, it's especially evident in Zone 1, is there is a slight desync between the screens, and it really becomes apparent if you're watching someone play or you're watching a video like this, but it's not super noticeable in the moment while you're playing. Like, when I'm playing Sonic on here, if he's on the top screen, it might be lagging behind the bottom, but since I'm looking at Sonic on the top, it seems kind of congruent, and then when he goes from the top to the bottom, I'm following him with my eyes, and you don't really notice it while you're playing, but it really shows up as you video record it. I'm pretty sure it's a software issue, because it doesn't show up for the first minute or so of gameplay, and then all of a sudden the screens get out of sync. I don't know if it's a memory leak, or even maybe the chip slipping in a power save mode. Remember when Anbernic did that with the 557? We had a bunch of scripts to fix it. I think that might be the case. And if it is the case, I'm hopeful that we can get an OTA patch from Anbernic, or just wait for a community-driven fix.
Lag be gone.
I definitely don't want to ignore it. I don't want to poo-poo it, but honestly, you don't really notice it while you're in the act of the game, but it is there and you can obviously see it on the screen. Now my speakers on here are a little cracky, a little tinny. I don't know if that's software or just cheap speakers. Get them. What do you mean bad? That was pretty good. What is that? Ah, it's got disease everywhere. All right, where's the tumors? There's, oh, right off the bat we got one. What? There. Daggum tumors. All right, let's cut this guy nice and easy. Missed a little spot. Okay, get that out of there. Put this on. Cover it in goop. Rub it. Oh, I'm rubbing his raw organs. What do you want? Well, he needs some green. There. Ecto Cooler. There. Everything's fine. Just keep giving him Ecto Cooler. Hey, Gary. Gary. Get over here, Gary. Piece of crap. You trying to bite my hand? I'm gonna take your paws. Hey, shake. Oh, no. Sorry, Gary. Ah. And this does have fast forward. It'll get you up to 200 plus. Kind of hard to control. Get wrecked. He had 1% to crit? Nice. Let's give it a shot. All too easy. I don't need to. I could just leave or murder it. Jesus, big old furry. Just set him on fire. Easy. Beyond DS, this will play everything from NES through PlayStation. You can actually get pretty far into N64, PSP, and Dreamcast. Now, this isn't going to be a dedicated N64 beast by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also more powerful and better at running those systems than, say, the RK3326 or even the H700 from the XX line. And you can actually play N64 on here at 2x upscaling on some games, and you can bump it down to 320p for harder to run stuff. Now, the dual screen on here is mainly for DS, but you can use it for some light multitasking. I wouldn't go too far beyond having a guide open on the bottom while you play a game on top, but it's kind of a cool situational thing you can do. I don't know why you'd ever really need a walkthrough for Star Fox, but it would be pretty cool to have for some JRPGs. Another feature on here is on-the-fly AI translation using one screen as your game and the other as your translation area. So you basically have this floating button down here, and when you press it, it takes a screenshot of the top screen and it gives you the translation on the bottom. I'd like to get this working a little bit better. I've really just kind of messed around with it a little bit. It probably is better. It might just be a zoo issue that I can't figure it out. I might end up doing a whole video on it, because if I can get this running smoothly, that would honestly open up a whole new world of gaming. Now, a lot of stuff, even like Thracia 776, there are multiple professional translation patches, but there are still a ton of games, especially JRPGs, that never got that treatment. Now, I know AI won't replace a team of dedicated enthusiasts, but it's still a damn sight better than not being able to play a game at all. I don't speak Japanese, but you know who does? This robot down here. He's going to tell me Prince Reef, who escaped from the burning Leinster castle and survived. He survived together with the knight Finn and his daughter Nana, who protect him, and so on and so forth. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that the Anbernic RG DS is a solid DS recreation. It's not as magical as something like the 35XXSP or even the 34XX, but if you are looking for a $99.99 device to emulate all of your favorite DS games and every system below, then it might be worth your consideration. I was honestly pretty bummed out when I saw the live stream on this and then Stubbs' first look video, because the DS performance, it frankly looked awful. But after messing around with some drastic settings, it runs more in line with what I anticipated. That being said, the price to performance ratio on here is not great. And despite advertising some 3DS gaming, I wouldn't even consider it. Any 3DS you can get running on here is a rare bonus. If you want 3DS, get the Thor. If you want to spend way less for way less power, then go with the RG DS. I would probably wait though. Now, if this debuted at $75, I would be way more likely to overlook the slightly underpowered chip, the mediocre battery, and even the screens that, while they're good, they're not pixel perfect. So at $100, if you're not already a DS fiend, maybe wait for a sale either on the Anbernic store or on AliExpress. As it is, it's not bad. It's just not a home run. It's a long single that moves the guy up to third. The screens are okay, the power's okay, the battery it's not great. And like I said, if it was 25% cheaper, I would ignore all that. But honestly, I'm at the point where I kind of wish they would have used the T618 from the 405 series and charged maybe closer to $125, $135. Then you'd have a much more powerful and a much more efficient chip that would allow for more DS tinkering, maybe run Melon DS, and even some more 3DS. But heck, who knows? Maybe they'll drop the RG DS Plus with a T820 in 6 months, and it'll be a $175 challenger to the Thor. Who knows? What I do know is that if you like the video, please like and subscribe. We're at 85,000 subs, and we're pushing hard for 100,000. Plus, we're knee-deep in the busy season, and videos will start coming out left and right to match the pace of handheld releases. So if you want to stay in the know, then stick with me, Stubbs, that jerk Andrew, Ban, I don't know, Larry. We got a writer named Larry. I know Jim and Calcag, right? I don't know. The whole Retro Handhelds team is there with you is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.